Hey, so there is a lot going on in the United States and in the world right now, and I wanted to make a comment that I haven't heard anybody else make anywhere. And that is that the problem is not what everybody is saying it is. If you are a student of human nature and history, and especially if you're interested in the way cycles play out based on human nature, which you can find all throughout history, you will know that certain things churn forward and play out in a similar fashion because human beings are, to simplify it, oversimplify it, one-trick ponies. This thing just keeps going on and going on, and we see different things. We see the same things over and over in a different form. So certain things are on a trajectory and they're going to play out, and that is not anybody's business. It's just not, that's not the thing that you exert control over as somebody who is interested in the ideas of mind creates reality, in my opinion. That's not where your power lies. It's not in trying to disrupt the forces of nature, which is really, when it comes down to it, what that is. The problem, the thing that fuels this constant repetition of the same shit is self-loathing and misery. And not just those things, but then taking those things and blaming the outside world for them. Period. If that were addressed in every human being, and I think it's possible that in the near future, something in that area could change for the first time ever, which would be really interesting to witness. But addressing those problems is the only thing you truly have control over. But when you realize the power that addressing those things gives you to shape things, to shape your own experience, to perceive things you didn't perceive before, which then allows you to, it allows paths forward that you just simply did not have access to previously, you will see what manifestation is. That's the heart of it, right there. It's the ability to shape and change yourself. And so right now, there is insanity everywhere. Grief, sadness, things some other people seem to be feeling that I personally can't relate to, but is definitely an offshoot of self-loathing and misery. That's all going on out there, but it's out there. It's out there. And the only thing that you have to worry about, happily, is your own self-loathing and misery. The sources of that, the ideas that you have that perpetuate that for you, all you have to do, that's it. You don't need to worry about anything out there. What's going to happen is going to happen. But your role in it and where you end up at the end of it and how you navigate through it is going to be entirely based on your self-concept and your beliefs. It's that simple. There's just nothing else here. That's all there is. So, there's a certain element for me, anytime there's big things going on, big things. Anytime something horrifying happens or there's something, big, there's a certain element of it to me that is like watching a horror movie or a suspense movie. There's an element of it for me that is like, wants to be involved in the human level BS drama for a little bit, but it gets boring really fast for me because it's just a big drama, and when you see why it's happening and how it's happening, it's just kind of boring. It's just boring. And there's I think, small subset of people that will understand what I'm saying right now and be able to use it. And if they're out there, they're probably going to find their way to this video. If it's what will help. That's what I'm telling myself. we've seen a lot of things in the last week about where people are mentally. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think it probably matters because for me, because I think when you're coming from a certain perspective, you realize that it doesn't really matter what happens out there. It doesn't even really matter what happens in my own personal circumstances or my own personal life. So there's sort of a lessening of fear there, because it just, I know the power of having the right type of perspective during situations where other people might panic, lose their minds, do something stupid, make bad decisions, things like that. Having like a strong center where you've addressed a lot of your fear and a lot of your problems with yourself that get projected out onto the world. I think for a lot of people, they just see a problem in the world and they don't realize it's 100% a problem with themselves. And if they resolve the problem with themselves, all of a sudden, this issue that they have with the outer world just dies down into nothing. And then they feel about it the same way other people do who don't have a particular issue in that area. It's really kind of shocking when you start to just courageously and boldly and relentlessly deal with yourself instead of allowing yourself to blame it on the outside world and look to the external for why you feel the way you do. If you refuse to do that, an entirely different world opens up to you. And now, I'm not saying, I want to be clear, because this would be ridiculous if I were saying this. I'm not saying that outside forces don't influence what happens in your life or whatever. I don't know. Call outside forces whatever you want to call it. Whatever fits into your manifestational framework. I'm not saying that circumstances that crop up because of things you've chosen to participate in mentally in the past, or however you want to think about it. If you believe that you create every single thing outside of yourself that happens from your human level, I don't personally think that. But if you do, you can fit this into that framework also. I'm not saying that things that happen don't, have an effect that would cause the on paper circumstances of your life, so your bank balance or where you live or whatever, to look worse than maybe it would have if that outer thing didn't happen. And I'm not saying there's not societal forces that are unfairly harming certain people or benefiting certain people. I'm not saying those things don't exist and that they don't have an effect that people would pretty generally agree is negative. Those things obviously happen, but if you look at the groups of people that these things happen to, there are always people that exit. And that's not an accident. It's mental. And when you refuse, I don't care, when you refuse to blame the outer world for your circumstances, an entirely different set of choices becomes available to you. Things you absolutely cannot see that are there right now. So for everybody out there who is experiencing the same thing I am, apparently it's not just Americans, it's people everywhere, which is very heartening. For everybody who's out there being affected by this, especially if you're being bounced around a lot mentally, if you're seeing things that are making you, enraged, and then you're seeing things that are making you grieve, and then you're seeing something that gives you some hope, and you're just like all over the place. This is all noise. And the more you're bounced around, the more you know that you've got some inner centering that needs to happen. And that's all that matters. You know what I mean? You can't really, I don't think, change the outside to change the inside. I think that when you manhandle external circumstances to support or, facilitate you feeling a certain way, we know that's possible, but it's not lasting. In order to actually have a different experience of the world, you have to change. It's just that simple. I feel like I'm saying the most obvious things in the world, but I think it's something that people need to hear. And I have to say this. I have definitely had moments in the last week of just absolute disgust at certain people, and I've had to resist viewing certain people as just like ants that need to be crushed. But I think, when you view everybody through this lens of self-loathing and misery and projecting that out onto the world and blaming other people for their own feelings, you can see this. It's so obvious, and you can see what these people are doing and what they are. But every single person, I think, I guess I don't know. I hate to say there's some people that are lost, that are beyond help, but the vast majority of people who are reacting in a way that is nauseating, those people they've just got to have that mental shift. They've just got to realize, I think when you believe, I think there's this element of disbelief that causes people to not do the exact things that they would need to do to fix everything for themselves. You don't think, it's almost too good to be true in a way that you could really have all of this power over yourself. I think that's what really, I feel like that's what stopped me on many occasions. And it's what other people, they just don't believe. Some people don't want to take the responsibility, but I think part of that, for a lot of people, or for other people, it's that you just, the idea that, wow, it's really me. I'm really doing this to myself. I actually have the power to change this. I actually have the power to recognize that, I've been programmed or accidentally started believing or whatever the wrong things about myself. And so therefore, all I have to do is figure out how to stop believing those things and everything will be different for me. I think that can just be really difficult because you get so down and out that you just, it's almost hopeless in your mind. You just don't think there's anything that could be done. Oh, I've got to kill people. I have to kill people in order to not feel this way. If you're at the point where you feel that way, I don't think you're beyond help, but you are in desperate need of the understanding of what's really going on. That being said, and who the fuck am I and what do I know? But I think that there's probably some shit that's going to go down in the future. I mean, am I alone in that thought after the last 7 days? And after the last year and a half, and after reading The Fourth Turning is Here, and after just seeing what the hell is going on everywhere, it's just insanity everywhere. Everything's insane right now. Just everything. Everything's just a huge illusion. Like an illusion for everybody. Like, we're living not just ooh, the world and reality is an illusion. Like if you're in America, really anywhere, you are being fed a story about things that is not real. It's just not real. Shit is not good. Anybody's saying that things are good. What? Okay. The truth will be made abundantly clear, I'm pretty sure, at some point here about all that stuff. But, I think we're at some point in the process of human evolution. Eventually, everybody's going to get to the point where this whole thing shifts. Self-loathing and misery are not the default that seems to just be a part of so many people's lives. I think we'll evolve beyond the screwed up belief systems that are causing a lot of the problems. But we will not evolve beyond human nature. And I don't think that we are going to, I hope we don't, because I don't even know what that would mean. But I don't think we're going to evolve beyond human nature in the next 5 years. Probably. And so I think it's really important right now that if you have these, if you find yourself upset, miserable, and projecting your problems out onto the amorphous blob of the other side, if you're experiencing that, I think it is vitally important for you to turn the focus inward. And I don't care what side you're on. I don't care if we're not even talking about politics and you're on, half of your family is a bunch of assholes to you and that's the other side to you and they're causing your problems. It feels cliche and kind of cheesy to say you always have a choice in how you react to things, because it's not even really true. Your reactions to things are based on your beliefs. And so you kind of have knee-jerk reactions to things. And it doesn't really feel like you have a choice in the moment. And a lot of the time, I don't think you actually do. But you do have a choice when you're not in one of those reactionary moments to examine what's going on with you and decide to change. And by the way, just accepting this base premise that I'm experiencing misery and self-loathing and it's being projected out onto the world, and that is how I'm experiencing everything. That is experiencing how I'm seeing everything and hearing everything. People hear things that aren't said and they don't hear things that are said. This is just, it's like these beliefs define what you're able to perceive. Just accepting that base premise and not fighting it anymore. You don't have to judge yourself. You don't have to change anything. Just accepting that base premise. This is the problem. The problem is my self-loathing and my resulting misery and my need to project that out on the world and to hold somebody else responsible for this thing that is only my responsibility. If you accept that, your entire world will change. If you accept that, solutions will begin to present themselves in the form of you being able to perceive things that you couldn't perceive before, you being able to think things that you couldn't think before, conclude things that you couldn't conclude before, and make decisions that were simply not something that you could stomach before or even entertain. This is how things change. And I truly hope people out there take it to heart. And I will say this in particular. I don't know. This is hard for me to say. Obviously, I'm saying this in response to Charlie Kirk being assassinated last week. I was not a big fan of his. I wasn't not a fan of his, but I just didn't really pay much attention to him. I saw the videos of him debating people on college campuses, and I could not watch them because they were so cringy. I just couldn't watch them, because I remember being a 20-year-old college student and having ideas that were not backed up by anything other than feels, and just thinking the world should be a certain way. And I just remember humiliatingly being disproved via discourse or debate or whatever by somebody much smarter and more experienced and well-read than myself. And every time I would see Charlie Kirk debating somebody on college, it would bring up that feeling in me. I'm just like, ugh, I can't watch this. It's so cringy for me. It's cringy for me seeing all these other people kind of inhabit that mentality that I've personally existed in. So, but I do think that it was promoting people talking. I feel like Charlie Kirk getting shot was, as cheesy as it sounds, it was like America getting shot. It was like the Constitution getting shot. It was like the last semblance of hope for people in this country getting shot. I think that's what everybody felt like. And the day after it happened, I was thinking, there's been a couple times this last year where I was like, I think I might go back to church, which is for me just insane. I was like a hostage dragged to church for 5 years in my early teens. Until I was 13, from 9 to 13. My mom made me go to church, and then she said, you never have to go again once you get confirmed. And I never did. And I've never been back. And a couple times over the last year, I've just said, I feel like maybe I should just go and hear a sermon or just see what it was like, because I don't really remember from being a kid. But, Neville Goddard and A Course in Miracles, all this stuff, it's all kind of dancing around all the same stuff. And I was just curious to see what would it be like going back to the church that I went to as a kid. And not only that, but as somebody who just sort of keeps to myself for the most part, I thought, it might be good to get some exposure to some people in that community, start making some connections, start building some community. I thought that maybe once or twice in the last year. And like the day after this, I just thought, man, I think it might be time to do that. And then I was really surprised when I heard that so many other people had the exact same reaction. I was really surprised. I thought it was just me for some reason that was going to feel that way. It's so weird too. I thought it was just going to be me that was affected the way that I said, like, that it was so much more than a person getting shot. It was so many other things also being murdered in that moment. So many people felt that way. I don't know why I thought it was only going to be me. So that was comforting. But, I wasn't like a big fan of his. And I certainly don't share most of his, or at least I don't share the degree of his opinions. I'm not a religious person. I'm not super conservative or anything. But it's just weird to me. Like to me, those people don't offend me. And people that have respectful views in almost any area, where they don't seek to control or harm other people, you can, like, whatever you want. Whatever you want to think is fine by me. I'm certainly not going to hate you because of it, or, I was trying to think, like, is there somebody sort of like on the other side of the aisle from Charlie who I would feel, I was running through all these people, because I'm not going to be like, oh, I could never be like, wow, I don't really care that person died. I'm sure there's somebody where I could just be like, I don't care. There is nobody who could be shot and killed where I would go on social media and talk about how happy I was about it. Like, just nobody. I remember when Saddam Hussein, I don't even remember the details of it. This was like 20 years ago, I think, that they caught him and I think executed him. I don't even really remember the details, but I remember at the time not feeling good about that. Like, this is a human being. Look, I'm not trying to say like I'm so much better than other people. I'm just trying to say, it is possible to be a human being who never feels good about another human life being ended. It's, I felt like Saddam Hussein's fucking whole life is a tragedy to have culminated in this moment. And I was going down the list of everybody, like who's the equivalent of Charlie Kirk, who's a Democrat. And I couldn't come up with one really, but I was just thinking like, and then I was thinking, who on the right, who would I feel less bad about if they got shot? And I could come up with some people there, I could come up with some people who I'm just like, I can't, that person's a turd. I hate the way they express themselves. They're fucking smug. There's like an angry edge to them. They're happy. They're like smugly triumphant when they, beat down somebody else's point. I could see having some feelings that were different. I just didn't feel that way about Charlie Kirk from what I've seen. And of course, what I've seen since he died, now I've watched like a million things that he said in response to other people saying that he said stuff. I've gone and actually looked for the context to see if it was true, and of course it wasn't. I'm really shiny, by the way, because I have sunscreen on. I apologize. But I can't come up with it. I can't come up with it. And the only thing that I can attribute that to, truly, is a certain level of acceptance of self, and having dealt with a lot of the issues that were making my life miserable as sort of the number one mission of my life for nearly my entire adult life. I think when you remove all of that stuff, there is a base level of humanity and a base level of respect for other people and their lives, and a base level of sorrow for when things go wrong. Even if a person is kind of monstrous, you still don't, even if they've done, like Saddam Hussein did some pretty bad shit. You don't see that. You see sort of the tragedy of the unfolding of their life, and it's sort of a deeply sad feeling. I think you are blocked from that if you have a certain level of hatred for yourself, which can be changed. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know. This has not been really an enlightening week for me. I hate to say it. What has been enlightening to me, or I should say what I'm happy for, is I think social media allowed a lot of people to wake up this week. A lot of people who were trying to avoid awareness, which I don't think is a terrible thing. I don't think you should focus on all this stuff. But I do think that you need to be approaching, I think, the world right now with a certain level of awareness and preparedness. And some of that preparedness, or maybe most of that preparedness for most people, is going to be changing yourself. There's never been a more urgent time for this. There's never been a time where it mattered more for the average person. People who can't do it aren't going to hear this. And if you can do it, you're going to hear this. And that's the best I can do. So I certainly hope that this helped somebody, as always. Have a lovely day.